Picture this. A 67-year-old Vietnamese property developer sentenced to death for transforming a bank into her personal ATM. Truong My Lan, a property tycoon in Vietnam, managed to turn one of the country's largest banks into her own personal piggy bank, siphoning off billions of dollars over 11 years. Truong My Lan's saga reads like a modern-day Robin Hood tale gone terribly wrong. From humble beginnings as a market stall vendor, she rose to become one of Vietnam's wealthiest women, amassing a vast empire of hotels, restaurants, and prime real estate. But behind the glittering facade lay a web of corruption and deceit, culminating in Lan's astonishing conviction for orchestrating one of the largest bank frauds in history. When it was all said and done, it was found that Lan siphoned over 1.1 quintillion Vietnamese dong, or 1,100 trillion dong, which equates to around $44 billion. It is estimated that the financial damage Lan caused is equal to 6% of Vietnam's GDP. To truly put this in perspective, this fraud is bigger than FTX, 8 billion, Theranos, 804 million, and the Wolf of Wall Street's Stratton Oakmont, 200 million, combined. These are in fact rookie numbers compared to what Lan was able to pump up. How did she manage to use the bank as her personal ATM? Let's delve into the intricate details of this jaw-dropping scheme. To understand Lan's audacious scheme, we must first explore the murky world of Vietnam's banking and business landscape. In a country where personal connections often wield more power than legal regulations, Lan leveraged her influence and wealth to orchestrate a complex web of deceit. Through a series of shell companies and proxies, she managed to acquire a controlling stake in the Saigon Commercial Bank, SCB, one of Vietnam's largest financial institutions. Let's break this down. A proxy is a nominee, or an agent acting on behalf of another person. Lan used various people and shell companies as proxies in order to own a small percentage of bank shares in many different names. This is due to a Vietnamese law that prohibits anyone from owning more than 5% of any bank. So, to work around this, Lan had a web of people owning 1% here, 2% there, 3% here, until she essentially owned the entirety of the SCB. Lan used hundreds of people and shell companies as proxies until she owned over 90% of the SCB shares. Lan's other deception that allowed this to keep going was bribing a senior regulator at the central bank and some 23 other government regulators with millions of dollars to falsify their oversight reports of the Saigon Commercial Bank and hide bad debts and evidence of wrongdoing. Lan would bribe and manipulate hundreds of people in this 11-year scheme to help hide the fraud's existence, ranging from her husband and niece to various bank inspectors to government officials. This granted Lan with unchecked power that gave her full control over the SCB without anyone batting an eye. With the eyes to the kingdom firmly in her grasp, Lan embarked on a brazen campaign of fraud and embezzlement. She began sending billions of dollars in fraudulent loans to her network of shell companies. These loans, totaling tens of billions of dollars, made up a significant portion of the bank's lending portfolio. But Lan's audacity didn't stop there. She allegedly ordered her driver to withdraw over $4 billion in cash from the bank, stashing it away in her basement like a modern-day Scrooge McDuck. The sheer scale of her criminal enterprise was mind-boggling, with prosecutors describing a web of corruption that stretched from the highest echelons of power to the humblest street vendors. As the evidence mounted against her, Lan's once glamorous facade began to crumble. Her questionable appearance in court stood in stark contrast to the lavish lifestyle she had once flaunted. But despite the overwhelming evidence against her, Lan remained defiant, denying all accusations and vowing to appeal the verdict. Lan's downfall was as swift as it was spectacular, marking the culmination of Vietnam's relentless anti-corruption campaign. Led by Communist Party leader Nguyen Phu Trong, the campaign sought to root out corruption at all levels of society, from low-level bureaucrats to high-flying tycoons like Lan. Trong's uncompromising stance against corruption had already claimed the scalps of 2 presidents and 2 deputy prime ministers, signaling his determination to clean up Vietnam's tarnished image. But Lan's case was unlike anything the country had seen before. With hundreds of officials implicated and billions of dollars at stake, the trial became a media spectacle, dominating headlines and gossip across the country. Rare photographs from inside the courtroom were splashed across the front pages of state-controlled newspapers, offering a glimpse into the inner workings of Vietnam's opaque judicial system. Despite the severity of her crimes, questions lingered about how Lan had managed to evade detection for so long. Some speculated that she had been protected by powerful figures in business and politics, while others pointed to systematic failures within Vietnam's regulatory framework. But regardless of the reasons, Lan's conviction sent a clear message. No one, no matter how powerful or well-connected, is above the law. As Lan's trial drew closer, the full extent of her crimes began to emerge. Prosecutors accused her of using the stolen funds to build a sprawling empire of luxury hotels, waterfront condos, and prime office space in some of Vietnam's most sought-after locations. The scale of her corruption was truly staggering, with Lan's loans accounting for 93% of all the bank's lending. The court stated that Lan's actions not only violate the property management rights of individuals, but also pushed the SCB into a state of special control, eroding people's trust in the leadership of the Communist Party and state, and sentenced her to death. Truong My Lan's story is a cautionary tale of greed, power, and the corrupting influence of money. From humble beginnings to the heights of wealth and influence, Lan's journey serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition. As the country grapples with the fallout from Lan's crimes, one thing is clear: the fight against corruption is far from over. As the old saying goes, crime may pay in the short term, but in the end, justice always prevails.